Welcome to Writing and Influence, the podcast where words meet impact. I'm your host, Elaine Acker, and I believe that publishing, whether it's a book, a blog, or even a simple social post, has the power to amplify your influence and change lives. Your words have power. Let's start writing with purpose. Welcome, everybody. Today, I am excited to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Jake Brown. Now, Jake has made it his mission to help people survive and thrive even under some of the biggest life challenges, such as bad bosses and ADHD. Jake is the author of Leadership, and that's leader with SHIT on the end of it. It's tales and tools to survive a bad boss and have fun at work. And I found this book to be super funny, it's practical, and it's very, very real. He's been known to lead conference sessions using Legos and doodles, and it all makes me think that Jake's real superpower is making work fun again. His insights on ADHD, workplace dynamics, and how to navigate a toxic environment are truly life-changing. And whether you're managing your own energy or trying to understand the people you lead, this will be a conversation that will be worth every minute. So welcome, Jake.
Oh, thanks, Elaine.
So let's start by diving into, let's say, dinosaurs and robots. Now, I was in a session you led at Grow. And it was the conference last February. And I think that you do a better job of showing up and making things fun than anybody else I know. And I want to know, why is that? How do you do that?
Honestly, I'm not exactly sure. I heard somebody years ago, I don't even remember who it was, that said, your gift to the world is what people used to tell you was too much. And it was one of those things that I was like, as a kid, I was told, sit in the back of the room, draw, stop talking to other people. Like, what I was doing, it was like, now, as I've studied and learned about my neurodivergence and, the people around me, I've realized that where there's dopamine, like, that is incredibly powerful. So it's this idea that's like, that is what I thrive on. And my biggest dopamine drive is watching other people smile and laugh. So it's this idea of like, I needed people to smile so that I could survive work, so I could survive school, so I could do all these things. And just finding the ways that it's like, if it's not fun, I can't engage it. Like, I struggle to force myself to work. And then as I got into a manager role and like leading other people, it's just like, it's just this natural thing that it's like, there's a fun way to do everything. Like, I've even found a way that, when I did my own taxes, like, it was fun. Like, it was like, it's this weird, like, mega Sudoku puzzle thing, where it's like, I gotta figure this out. It's this like national treasure thing that I'm figuring out.
Well, I love that you're really looking at the science behind it. I mean, you're not just trying all these things willy-nilly. You have dug into the science behind it. So if you don't mind, kind of describe what you did at the Grow conference, and then I'll
Sure.
tell you what I took away from that too.
Yeah. So the idea is when you go to a conference, a lot of times you're thinking about everything, your mind's overwhelmed. Even like on the last day of the conference, you're carrying everything. You even start to feel like the real world's starting to connect, and it's hard to be present on that last day. And one of my favorite things to do is just have this weird session. It only takes a few minutes, and I teach people to doodle. But the idea is I'm showing them how I'm taking them through the lens of neurodivergence, like ADHD, autism. Like, we're stepping into that and going, what if the psychology, you break that down and you're not judged anymore. Whatever output you have is judged. And then the other one is neurology. Everything goes in or out of your brain, input or output. And I just teach people to go to that place where you make something that will never be judged. And the way that I do is doodling. I learned it from my grandpa, and it's changed the way I approach a lot of things. I've taught it to my kids. I've done it at, now tens of thousands of people I've done this thing for. And it's just a couple minutes. I teach people how to doodle like they were a kid again. And it is amazing. I've done it up to 400 people in the room, and the room gets silent. I'm talking like grown-up professional, like C-suite people are in this room, and they're doodling, and it gets quiet, and they do it. We throw it away so that they can't judge it. And what happens is your brain goes to a safe space where all of the distractions, all things clinging to you are just gone. They just let go. And it is almost eerie how present you are and everybody is in the room. And then, eventually people smile, they re-engage with the person right there in front of them, the task that's in front of them, but they forget about their laundry, they forget about their travel, they forget about TSA, they forget about, their groceries, or if their kid's going to get it to lacrosse practice on time. Like, there's just a moment that everybody's there.
Yeah, and I can tell you that's exactly what was happening on my side as a conference attendee, because I'm sitting in this chair. So you walk in, everybody's running around, talking to each other, grabbing coffee, thinking that they have to check out, later that morning. What are their travel plans? Who are they riding with to the airport? So there's all of this chaos in their heads, like you're talking about. And for this first speaker of the morning, it's really important that everybody focus and listen. And, kind of like you were describing, it's the last day of the conference, and you're thinking, how in the heck are you going to get all these people to settle down and pay attention? And so, but that was exactly what you did. We drew a robot, which, as we established, I didn't really care about the robot so much. So I didn't mind drawing the robot. But it's also, and I've seen people ask you this question a lot, and they're going, I can't draw, I can't do, I can't draw, I can't do what you do. But you walked us through it kind of step by step, and just the focus on making the shapes on the page, suddenly, like you said, everything got quiet and people started to do it, and there was no judgment, and people were ready for Catherine Brown to take the stage that morning. So I just found that exceptionally and very surprisingly powerful for getting this room full of people to pay attention.
Yeah, thank you so much for that encouragement. It is wild, and people are always skeptical. And what's
Yeah.
funny is, like they're like, okay, whatever. But when they do it, I mean, it's like the response I get afterward is always amazing. Like, I spend more time talking to people about what just happened afterward than I do doodling. Like, I would say if we do a 10-minute doodle, I might talk to people for 30, 40 minutes afterwards about their 10-minute doodle. And I'm like, just go doodle again and like get to work. Like, this is
I love it. And you use your doodle as kind of a tool in your coaching as well with ADHD clients,
right.
correct?
Yes.
Because you said that it kind of makes a space either between your calls or between tasks where you can leave one task behind, do some doodling, settle down, and then be ready for the next task.
Right, yeah. With ADHD, two of the things that really affect us are, inattentive. Like, can we choose to focus on something? That's very difficult. But once we get focused on something, hyperfocus is amazing. Like getting into that and knocking stuff out. It's kind of like neurotypical people think of the flow state. People will talk about the flow state, but then imagine that your brain only has one track and you're not just like a train, but you're like, you know, a Formula One race car driving on this thing. Like, that is what happens, is all that overlaps for ADHD. And what I found is if I can get into hyper focus, I can actually get 10 hours of work done in about 3 hours. So getting into that space is amazing. And I found that doodling, the practice of doodling, I can trigger hyper focus for myself. And at the same time, task switching. Um, I've heard it, there's lots of statistics out there, but for neurotypical, they'll say if you task switch, it could take 20 minutes. Like, if you get interrupted, it can take 20 minutes to get back into that task. Well, I was watching a webinar of a psychiatrist in England. He said, if you have ADHD and you get interrupted, it may take 2 weeks to get back into that task. And I was like, first of all, I felt validated. I'm like, yes, that's exactly how it is. Like, my brain cannot find out where I was. I have to back up to the beginning and work all the way back
Mm.
up. But with doodling, if you're task switching or if you get interrupted or whatever, what happens is the doodling lets all that junk let go of you. And then the first thing that our mind sees, we are present with that task only. And it's not that there are four things and some of them are, newer or shiny object. Like, our brain will attach to the thing that's like the best option in front of us. Well, by doodling, we can set it up to where there's only one thing in front of us. and your brain will see that that's novel, that that's new, that not necessarily important, but it's exciting. It's the fun thing. It's the next new thing in front of you. Even if it's an old thing, it's just newer than the doodle. So
Yeah. Okay. And you were talking about people being skeptical.
yeah.
And so you've run into this either with leaders, managers, maybe even HR people who you're talking about the challenges, the unique challenges of ADHD and neurotypical versus neurodivergent, and how there are some different techniques they can try and use. And it seems like you do hit some skepticism
A lot.
periodically because they just don't get how this thing that you're
Mhm.
recommending would work. Can you think of an instance, any stories you can share about when you suggested something that people found that they were
Oh
super
man,
skeptical about, and then
a lot of
it
stuff.
worked?
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of stuff. I mean, because I am neurodivergent, so my brain processes. I see things from a different perspective. So then when I'm talking to other people, specifically that have ADHD, like I can make sense to them really well. But if there's a neurotypical person who's the decision maker, for instance, an HR director
Yeah.
or somebody like that, or the CEO, like they, I have to remember, they can't understand, just like I have trouble understanding their way, or their employees are having trouble following their vision because they don't understand it.
Mm.
Well, the CEO or the HR director, they think their way. Like their brain is wired and they process information, and I have to approach it differently. And there are several things. I mean, the doodling's one. Like you mentioned, the Lego workshops. Like nobody
Hmm.
thinks that we're going to play with Legos for an hour, and at the end of it, our team's going to be completely unified about the vision and where we're headed over the next 5 years. Like that's not a thing that seems like it should work, but it always has. That's one. Man, all kinds of stuff. Just I'm trying to think of like specific examples. Um, One of my favorite things right now is like having companies when they're having trouble with, say, community, or as they've gone remote or they're working in different places, is these co-working calls. In neurodivergence, like in our world, it's called body doubling, and it's what it actually is most people like accountability. But for ADHD, accountability is actually a judgment and it's predetermined
Mm.
failure. That's how our mind processes it. But if we are working and somebody's just walking beside us, I call it nudging. It's this idea that we get a lot of stuff done. And then, especially like if I go to a coffee shop, even, and I'm working on something, and then I get distracted and I look up and I see somebody else that's reading a book or like they're working, I just drift back into work mode. Like I just immediately, it's kind of like the bumpers at the bowling alley. I just bump straight back into work. Well, that's what these calls do for a lot of people. And it's like some people, I have one client, they have, I mean, some of them have like nine, some of them have two people. One of them has about 35 people. And every Friday morning, they do this co working call. It's 2 hours long right before lunch. And then they all get on, they sit in quiet, they do their work, they have their cameras on Zoom, they pipe music in like they're all sitting in the same coffee shop or they're in the same room working. And it just, they've told me, they're like, we get so much work done. They're like, our team gets like 3 days worth of work done in that 2 hours, just
Wow.
collectively, and they're not talking to each other. They're just all head down moving their stuff forward. And it's worked so well now that through the summer, they have that call. It actually ends at 11 a.m. Um, and then at that point, they'll stay on and eat lunch together, but they're done. Like at 11 a.m., they're done for the week because all of their work is done. They get the time off. But they said a lot of times they'll just sit there and eat their lunch and hang out together, kind of have like a Zoom, you know, break
Zoom
room.
lunchroom.
Yeah, Zoom lunchroom. And one of the guys was like, and it's amazing because you can't smell their fish. Like you can't smell what the other person warmed up. So they do that. And the lady that was in charge, so it's a husband and wife that own this company, and the lady's in charge of the HR and the operations, stuff like that. And she was very, very skeptical. But they got to the point where their turnover and they were having a lot of trouble, specifically with they draw in, their industry draws in more excited, people. They had a high group of ADHD, and they're like, how do we just keep people engaged? How do we do this? How do we not have a revolving door? And it's like, well,
Mm.
you've got a culture problem because you've built something that they don't want to be a part of. Well,
Mm.
how do we get them together? Well, these Zoom calls, because they're around, they're all over the country. And by having these
Yeah.
calls, like I said, it was skeptical. And I was like, what are you going to lose? Like, You do a weird call. If it doesn't work, you blame me. Like, I'm the weird outsider that tried this thing, and then you tell the team, yeah, sorry guys, that guy was weird. And it worked, and like I've been working with them for, um, that company I've been working with for, over a year. So when I threw that one in there, they were a little bit more responsive, but or more receiving, but not, I mean, it was definitely like, they were like riding the gas and the brakes at the same time. They're like, I don't know about this, Jake.
Well, I want to talk about your book for a second.
All right.
And that's something that I think a lot of people that do have ADHD are hesitant to even tackle a task like that. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And by the way, I wanted to tell everybody when I was trying to search for the book on Amazon and I was typing in leadership, at the Amazon search bar would not let me keep putting it in there. So I just want everybody to know we'll have links in the show notes. It kept trying to say leadership.
Yes.
With an FT, which is like, that's not even.
John Maxwell's team pays a lot of money in ads and stuff. And I can't find it. Like, seriously, they were running ads to my book title to go to their book. So they're like, they're paying to have
Lord.
it. Yeah. Marketing money.
That's
and I'm like,
aggravating.
That's cool. Yeah, but
I don't know. I'll be aggravated on your behalf.
At the same time, though, I'm like, man, I showed up on John Maxwell's radar. Like, how cool is that?
Well, I ended up putting the quotes on either side of it. So I was like, quote, leadership, and, close quote by Jake Brown.
Yeah, so if you put my name, it shows up.
And then it came up. But we'll have the link in the show notes so you don't have to search and get directed to the wrong place. All right, said that. Now, talk to me about your book. Yeah, you took a really bad situation, made it better, and then wrote about it. So how did you get started on the book? How did you keep going? Because so many people have it in their head that they want to write a book, but they don't follow through and get her done. So how did you make it happen?
All right. So to start with, how did I write the book? It was a perfect time. I was having a bunch of conversations with people, and it seemed like every conversation people were talking about how much they hated work, how much they hated their boss. And I realized I was telling the same stories. Like, I was talking to people, I was telling stories, I was engaging with them, I was listening to them. The same issues were coming up over and over again. And I just thought, hey, I should record these, like I should document these stories that I keep telling over and over again. And that was the idea of the book. It was kind of like this idea that it was a leadership book, but not from the, almost, the, like, I didn't think of it at the time, but like Wicked. It's like, what if it was told from the other person's perspective? And that's what I wanted to do, is like, let me tell about a bad leader from the person watching or stuck in the middle management leadership.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of the book. And it was this idea where it's like, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it the normal way, because that's not my thing.
It's not who you are.
Yeah. That would be totally off brand to follow rules. So I just started thinking about it. I was telling the stories, and I started documenting some of them. And then at the same time, there was this really amazing lady who was following my emails and replied one day. It's still flagged in mine, and it said, "Never stop writing." And that was you, Elaine. It was just this complete encouragement that comes up all the time, where it was like, so ADHD, dyslexic, that was my background. Don't even, like, reading in public is one of my biggest fears. But got into reading my emails. People were following them, liking them, replying to them. If I send an email, I get, at this point, I send out just a regular email, and I get 25, 30 people will hit reply and just respond to me. And I'm like, I'm not a great writer, but I think just it's engaging, like it's working the way that my stories were going.
Yeah.
And then people were kind of like, oh, is this going to be a book? Like, what's going to happen? And I was like, I don't know. And I decided I was going to make it a book. And every time I got into it, the first things I actually did was I recorded myself telling the stories. And then I listened to them and thought, okay, yeah, this is how the story sounds. Like, this is what we're liking about the story. So then I use that as raw material to then go and write. Some of them I transcribed so that I could look at it and move it. But some of them, it was just, I listened to the story, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to write this how I tell the story. And then I'm going to go back and edit it. So there's actually kind of two voices. My wife calls it Jake and Head Jake. And it's this idea that it's like, you get to hear me living through this, like through each story, but you also get to hear my internal like commentary, like the old guys on the Muppets that are like,
Yeah.
like there's that version of me in there too, like talking like, what are you doing? Like just kind of the inside thought. So that's kind of as I started writing the book. And what I did is I documented the stories, and then I went through and I said, but what do I actually want them to know? Like, who is it? I didn't know exactly who it was for at the time. I just know I was getting the stories out. And I thought, okay,
Mhm.
well, who is it for? And through conversations with, several other people like that were writing books and what they did. And I had people that I look up to read parts of it and stuff and get back to me. And they're like, this is so weird. And then one person I sent, an early manuscript to, um, texted me at like 4 a.m. and said, I sent it to them like after dinner, and they texted me at like 4 a.m. and they're like, I just finished your book. Like I stayed up and I was just like, this hasn't even been proofread and edited yet. Like, oh my goodness. So it was, and then another person jokingly, one of the comments, a review that somebody posted, they said it's a 2-poop book. And I was like, is that good? And what they were saying is like they read it in the bathroom and it moves quickly. It's kind of like, oh, it only takes 2 sittings to read the book. And I was like, that is the strangest rating I have ever heard in my life. But they liked it. So going through the whole experience of launching the book, I just did it goofy, tongue-in-cheek, like my cover reveal was sitting on top of a urinal, like on the pipes of a urinal. It was just like everything I wanted it to be junior high poop jokes. Like I wanted to have that humor as I move forward. And like you said, when I slowed down, when it got hard, because there were definitely places where it got hard and I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
Part of what I did is I let a group of people know that I was doing it, and they would check on it. And it was like, okay, I'm going to let them down if I don't do this. And one of the biggest urges was somebody close to me, uh, like um, like extended married family, expressed very heavy doubt out loud like with a small group of people that they thought I would actually be able to complete this. And
Well,
as my wife says, the number one way to make me do something is to tell me I can't.
yeah.
And, so there was a
Mhm.
motor in me from that. And then there were people around me that were checking on it. And then there were the people that were just constantly encouraging me. And then there were people that I could just text. And it was like, even if I'm down, I'm like, man, I'm just having a rough day. Like I'm not getting words out or whatever. And there were people that just made it a safe place to struggle with words, to struggle with all of it. And when I had doubt, there were people that were kind of like, there was one day that I was going to give up on the book. Like I had gotten to the point where I was like, this is hard. I'm staying up at night. I say I was giving up on the book. It only took me a couple months to write it and get it done when I finally started, because I already had the stories collected and everything, organizing it
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But as I was like, it was just hard, and I was like, nobody cares about this. Like, this is weird. It's just going to be a flash in the pan. No, it's too weird. And I was going to give up on it. And I just ended up talking to a lady, and she had heard about my book. So we like just through networking knew people. We hopped on a Zoom call, talked about it. And she was like, I need this for my son because he's been trapped in a really bad
Mhm.
job, and I just need him to have hope. And that's like she said that, and I was like, okay, for the rest of the duration of it, it was kind of like I was writing, like she even told me his name, and I wrote on a post-it
Yeah.
note, and it was like, this book has to be done for him. Like
Because he
this is
needs
what,
it.
right,
Yeah.
like so it's like I'm gonna serve him, like this needs to be there. And then I realized like I needed this book 5 years ago, whatever. Like I needed this, he
Yeah.
needs it. Like so it was kind of that mix of how do you keep going. The other thing was breaking it down into really little achievable bits.
Mm.
Like I called them laps. I didn't know anything better. And it was like writing a book is incredibly hard. And if I knew everything that it was going to be, there's no way I would have started it. But I got into it, and like I said, like having conversations with you and several other people just kept me moving and kind of kept that stuff clear in front of me. And it was kind of like I did some things differently. Like the first thing for the book, the working title was leadership. That is still the title,
Yeah.
because when you read the intro, it's a typo that changed the way that I managed. It changed my view of work, and then it changed the way I talk to people, and then it became the book. So it's like the typo that changed my life. Like I actually went out and started my own business because of this typo eventually. So I was like, that has to be the title. And everybody, you say the title of the book, and everybody's like, oh, let me tell you about my boss. Like everybody has a boss
Exactly.
somewhere. And that's what I found is
Yes.
it was these stories, and nobody wanted a lecture. So it's the
Yeah.
stories with like a nugget. Like, by the way, here's this, and here's the tool to move forward.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of rambling now, but
No,
it
I
was a
love.
hard process. But
Yeah.
breaking it to those small things, it became sprints. And it was like I just started listing the stories, and then I went back and said, how do they fit? Which ones include, which ones move the person from day one and realizing this is a bad situation, bad boss, all the way to day last, like when they
Yeah.
have hope, when they're healthy. And I already had the framework I had taught people along the way. So then it was like, okay, how do I now put that into the book? How do I give people that tool where they can use it and kind of assess and know how to move forward? Because originally that tool wasn't in there. I was
Mm.
going to make it something outside that people could get. And one of my mentors, actually a pastor, was looking at it, and two things. I said, okay, now I got to find a title. And because I was, worried about the title or whatever. And he told
Yeah.
me, he was like, here's the thing. He goes, are you trying to get on the shelves at a church bookstore or help people that are stuck in darkness? So a pastor told me to keep the title. And he also
Smart
told me that,
man.
and he told me put
Mhm.
that tool, like, let's just stick it on the back. And I'm like, but that sounds weird to have like a memoir and tool combo thing. And he was like, since when do you care? Like, is this going to help people? And I was like, all right. So that's kind of how the book came together. It was talking to a lot of other people, hearing what they were saying, sharing the stories, and just going, like, doing a little bit of hard work. And I did not necessarily think long term as the project ended. Like I said, this is what I want the project to be. How can I launch it at this time? But then
Yeah.
I got very short sighted on the lapse.
Mm.
Um, and then at one point, I remember looking at it and going, like, I'm almost done. And then I just like stayed up that night and like just crushed what was left because I was like, why would I take another week on this? Like, I can be done when I wake up tomorrow. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to recap a couple of the things you said because they're so important. So, number one, you're a storyteller, and that's why I told you should never stop writing. Is even if the writing part is hard, you were living through things and sharing stories that we could all relate to. It's like, just like you said, every single person you say that to can go, oh, I had a boss, let me tell you. I mean, so it's so relatable. And we're going to come back to your tool, the framework, here in just a second. But the other things I want to point out about what you said is that everybody's process is a little different, but there's so much good about your process because you are more naturally verbal. Like my brain is wired to my fingers. I type. I find it very difficult to speak a story first. I write first. So my way isn't the way for everybody. And so everybody needs to kind of find their own structure for their writing process. And that's one of the things that I included when I put together the course on writing a book. So I have a course on writing the book, but the other thing I found was just like you found this group of people to support you and stay with it, is that people who were joining the course weren't necessarily finishing because they didn't have this ongoing support. So I added office hours to my course so that people can still come in and have somebody to bounce things off of. And accountability. Yeah, that doesn't mean failure, just accountability to
well,
keep
I would
going.
the the difference between I would say the accountability is it somebody that's judging you or somebody that's hoping for you? And that's the biggest
Mm,
difference is like
that's
with you,
good.
there are a lot of people that hope for me, but they're not judging the gap and gain. Like they're
Oh yeah,
hoping they're hoping ahead of me. They're kind of in that future and hoping as opposed to judging me in the past. And most
yeah.
accountability, it feels like it's the past. But when you have people that are
Okay.
excited and it's kind of like, oh man, I read this chapter, like when does that resolve? Or I saw
Yeah,
this, like you told this other story, like is this story going to be in there? Like when people were curious and leaning in and they were kind of hoping, and it's kind of like it wasn't so much that I was letting them down as I was trying to keep pace with their excitement of what I was doing.
yeah. That's gold. So tell me. So let's go back to your
Mhm.
framework and the guy who said it was the two poop read. That was a good lead in to what is called the WIPE
Yes.
framework. So you do have a tool, and you're doing coaching. So how are you guiding people through this process? And it occurred to me, I'm going to add this. It occurred to me that even though a lot of people are reading this book and thinking, what do I have to do to deal with this situation? Do I stay? Do I go? How do I manage this? So they're thinking that, but you and I know so many people who are entrepreneurs and they're out there working on their own, and they may have built something that they no longer like or align with, and it's time to make a change or refine what they do, but they stay with what they know. And so they've become their own boss that's kind of perhaps setting the wrong expectations and leading them in the wrong direction. So I would argue that this framework can be used for individuals who are their own boss, solopreneurs, or if you're working for a giant corporation.
I definitely did this. I launched my own company, and at the end of the first quarter, I went through the framework for myself, and I realized I was by
Mm.
far the worst, most abusive boss I had ever had. I was like, if anybody treated me the way that I was treating me, they would go to jail. Like, it was so bad. But I mean, that's how we do when we launch out, because it is, it's our work, it's our family's livelihood, it is our
Yeah.
hobby, it is our hope, it is our passion. Like, everything's built into that one, and then you kind of step back and go, okay, made it through that. Now I need to adjust before this becomes horrible. Um,
Well, so tell me, you don't have to tell us the whole framework, but
yeah,
just give us an idea. What advice are you giving people when they find themselves in one of these situations?
yeah. So basically, you answer 2 questions, and you're in one of 4 quads. It's like, what? This is the role that you're playing, and the acronym of those 4 is WIPE. There's the winner, the intern, the prisoner, and the expert. And this can change very quickly. Like, you can be, if you get a promotion, if somebody else on staff changes, if projects, you can slide into one of the other squares, and you kind of like look at it and you go, okay, where am I right now? And after you know where you are, then you have to choose. Basically, are you going to stay there? Are you just going to sit still and hope it gets better? Or are you going to do the work? Because one of the things I found through the process was I was expecting a boss to make me better and mentor me. That was not the boss's expectation of our relationship. And I realized that it was my job to actually grow me. Like, I had to be responsible for that. Nobody else was going
Mm.
to. So then it's like, okay, if I need to grow myself, but then the team and the people I was leading, well, how do I teach them to do that and make space for them to grow? Well, I had to get to the winner square to realize that for other people, you know? And one of the main things I say about the winner is your job, if you're in the winner square, like, first of all, I don't know why you're reading my book, but if you're there, your job is to teach other people to wipe themselves. Because, like, it's the same. I'm a parent, I have 4 kids, and a big part of parenting, like, there's this big milestone when your kids can go to the bathroom and wipe themselves. Like, when they can take care of their whole bathroom experience on their own, like, that's a major milestone in development. And I realized when you're managing people, when they own their own self-awareness and growth, like,
Mm.
that is a huge milestone for future leaders and for middle manager and for any employee. Now you want to be there and encourage them. So the idea there is, it goes, okay, well, say you are, I don't know, say you take the assessment and you realize that you're the expert. That actually means that you are able, capable, and allowed. You're great at your job, but you're not aligned with the owner of the company, the team, the mission. Like, so your options are go find somewhere else that you're aligned, or sit still and hope the company shifts into, to become aligned with you, which honestly is just bad advice. And then the third option is to actually change your alignment. Find a way to re engage to become aligned. And if you do that, then you can slide into that winner square. But it's, pretty simple things where I give advice in the book where it's like, depending on where you are, figure out the position you're in, which part is or isn't, are you aligned and able? Like, what is missing? And then you pick one. Like, okay, this is where it is. I need to be intentional about working on alignment with the team, or I need to be intentional about gaining skills. Like, there are a lot of times where I'll say the hardest one to overcome is, there's like, are you able to do your job? There's 2 parts of that. Do you have the skills? Are you capable of doing your job? And are you allowed? Like that's the one, like, does your boss actually allow you to do your job? Does the team, like, do you have ownership? Can you, like, are you allowed to do it? And I found that I was there several times, but when I got stuck in that point, I actually found ways to work on that. Because
Mm.
it's trust. And a lot of times the boss doesn't actually trust themselves to delegate. It has nothing to do with
Uh,
us, but it feels like it's our fault, it's our problem, it's crushing because we're babysat, micromanaging, all this kind of stuff. But the fact is, most bosses are bad at delegating because they know that they're going to fail you. So they stay involved too long because they don't know what to do. Well, you can build trust there because the way I define trust is somebody, like, you know that somebody does what they say they'll do.
mm,
So you have to
yeah.
go, okay, so say you're going to do something, then do it, then make sure the boss knows. It seems kind of counterintuitive, but reminding the boss, because the boss, a lot of people are always looking for fires. Teammates, they're putting out the fires as squeaky wheels. Sometimes we have to stop them and be like, hey, remember those last 7 projects that went great? Like, this is what I did. I'm doing this all the time. Can I just do it without, like, instead of talking every day, can I maybe do
Right.
this and then check in at the end of, at the end of the week? Like, actually teaching the boss to trust you means that you
Yeah.
are more allowed. And that I learned that over years of pain. And then one day it just dawned on me, watching my kids, interacting with my kids, and realizing that I have to allow them to trip and fail. I have to make space for that. Well, then how do you get that? Well, you ask for it. You have to be intentional about your own growth. So that's kind of some quick examples of how it works.
Yeah, that's great. So, what books are you reading right now?
Oh, so I actually just started 2 books. They're very, very different. So one of them is Escape from Tarikiak, a guy
Oh,
named
I
Ben
have
Luders.
that book.
Yeah. So
Yes.
a friend wrote this and launched it. He actually sat down with his kids and they just like brainstormed and came up with all these crazy ideas, telling stories back and forth, and then they spent years like massaging it into this book. So I just been diving into that, and it is I would say it's kind of the idea of like family adventure, kid-led family adventure stuff. It is ridiculously fun. The crazy things like there's like this there's this walrus pirate guy that's like addicted to coffee. Like it's crazy. So it is good stuff. And then the other one I just started is called They'll Fight Over It When You're Dead. Um, by Dave Munson. So it is if you've heard of saddleback leather, like the bags,
Yeah.
the satchels and stuff. So I've had one of their satchels for years. But it is his story about, so
Mm.
this here's the I heard that he was doing, like, my wife saw it and I was like, yes, I want that book, pre-order it. And it came in, and here's the subtitle. The true story of how I survived terrorists, morons, and an assassin to build one of the coolest leather companies in the world. And I'm like, who doesn't want to read that?
I wanna read that. Now I have to put it on my list.
I'm like, in the intro, like, that's how far I got into it, and I was like, I have to stop because I have dad duties. Like I was sitting there reading it, and I got to this point where my alarm went off to like go start dinner yesterday, and I'm like, I bet they're not that hungry. Like, in my mind, I'm justifying, like, they can eat dinner an hour late. I can stick with this book a little bit longer. But I did the mature thing. I fed my children.
Adulting can be
Yeah.
so
Oh man.
difficult. Well, I'm glad you don't adult all the time. You let your inner kid come out, and we all benefit. So,
Thank you.
you and I could talk forever, and I would love to. Maybe we'll have to do part 2 of this conversation another time. But this time, tell us how we can find you. And I think you've got a couple of things that might help
Yeah.
make people's lives a little better.
So, if you're interested about the weird stories and things, they are ridiculous stories in the book. You can actually go to leadershit.co and download either PDF or audio, kind of the first chapter to get kind of the sample. I promise you will laugh. So if you're interested in that and kind of that approach to work and surviving bad work, you can go there and download. And then the other thing, if you're interested in some of the ADHD stuff that I'm doing, which is building, like, we're building your business and your life so it works the way that you think, instead of the rules that other people, like the house rules that somebody else gave you, that just don't work. So if you're interested in
So
some of that,
good.
If you go to jakebrown.co, there are free resources there. They're all pretty self-explanatory if you think like I do. If you're neurotypical, you might look at it and be like, what is going on here? That's fine.
But everybody has a lovable ADHD human in their life. And, let's all learn. Let's dig into the science and figure out how to make this go a little more smoothly.
A little more fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs more fun. Jake, thank you so much for being here with me.
Oh, you bet. It's been a pleasure.
We'll do it again soon.